The death penalty has long been a controversial and heavily debated topic. Almost everyone has an opinion on the administration of capital punishment, regardless of their education on the subject. Because philosophical beliefs, rather than facts, shape many views on the subject, I will instead examine the constitutionality of the death penalty and how public perception can influence the interpretation of the Constitution. The death penalty, which has existed in America since the arrival of the first settlers, has seen many rises and falls in its usage over the centuries. For argument's sake, I will primarily be examining the history of capital punishment within the last 100 years. In 1972, the landmark case of Furman v. Georgia ruled that the administration of the death penalty, left in the hands of the jury, resulted in arbitrary sentencing. This ruling declared specific statutes within Georgia's death penalty, one of which many states followed as well, to be unconstitutional. This ruling led to the rearranging of many state and federal statutes with the introduction of tedious sentencing guidelines, leading to numerous appeals, extremely high court costs, and excessive time spent on death row that we now see in death penalty cases today. The death penalty was reinstated under new guidelines in 1976 following the Supreme Court case of Gregg v. Georgia. With this came a shift in how scholars analyze the death penalty, moving away from philosophical arguments and instead focusing on the discrepancies in its administration. The primary external factor that affects the sentencing of the death penalty is the defendant's and the victim's race. The defendant's race, as well as the victim's race, has been found to affect the outcome of sentencing. Because so many other factors go into a death penalty sentencing, it cannot yet be definitively said that race directly affects the results, but it is notably disproportionate, with African Americans being at a higher risk of worse outcomes than white defendants. What has been proven, though, is that African American defendants are 1.7 times more likely to receive lower cost defense, which has been proven to affect the outcome of a sentencing. Although further studies are needed on the matter, research has found a causal relationship between the defendant's race, the victim's race, and the sentencing outcome. Another factor that has been found to affect the sentencing and capital punishment is the geographical location of the court. Southern states have long been the ones that impose the death penalty the most because of their general political affiliations and Confederate history. Texas leads the charge of the most death penalty convictions, followed by Oklahoma, Virginia, Florida, and Missouri. Given that the administration of the death penalty was left to the states to determine, these statistics make sense and are not inherently unconstitutional. However, when examined further, 2% of counties, mostly in southern states, make up over 50% of all death penalty convictions. This evident disproportionality highlights the discrepancies in the use of the death penalty across the geographical United States and leaves some convictions wholly dependent on where the crime is being tried. Many U.S. states have declared the death penalty unconstitutional and writing it out of the Constitution. Among these states is Washington, which in 2018 abolished the death penalty because it was administered in a racially biased manner, making it an arbitrary imposition. The case that prompted this evaluation was State v. Gregory, a first-degree murder case that was under the death penalty. The defense argued that black defendants were 4.5 times more likely to receive the death penalty than their white counterparts, which prompted the evaluation of its constitutionality. This case was a landmark decision as it was the first abolition of the death penalty based on racial grounds. Given the similarities of many different states' death penalty statutes following the 1976 reinstatement of them, Washington's decision was the cornerstone of exposing flaws in the remaining death penalty states' capital punishment. The question remains, is the death penalty constitutional? In theory, it can be, but in practice, with extreme human error leading to discrepancies in its administration, it is likely not. With factors such as race, socioeconomic status, geographical location, and court affiliations weighing so heavily on the outcome of death penalty cases, it can be argued that its use, no matter state or federal, falls under arbitrary imposition, which violates the 8th and 14th Amendments. Obviously, the constitutionality of the death penalty relies heavily on a deep understanding of the Constitution and its interpretation. Still, a pattern has emerged that suggests a reevaluation is necessary.